Hey everybody, Floyd here. Welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to do something a little different. I'm just going to talk about three different things. One of which is a trend that I've noticed happening a few times. Another one is just going to be some general advice for people that are interested in old motorcycles. And the third one is just going to be a statement about some things I've seen happen that are quite frankly kind of disturbing and I wish would not happen, that people would just stop. But first we need to talk about here is the general downward trend of prices. Their records are still being set on the super rare, super expensive, hard to find items. You know, the 03 Harleys. I think there was a JC 58 or 56. Honda SA250 Dream. The super rare stuff is still bringing super record prices. But the ordinary everyday classics that especially during COVID seem to have shot through the roof are undergoing a price correction. The market is beginning to correct itself and sort itself out a little bit. I have the last issue of Motorcycle Classics magazine here. This is a great magazine. I don't get paid to say anything, but I subscribe. And if you're really in tune with the old bikes, you should too. And the headline on this article basically states, "The records fell like dominoes. But why is my Manx Norton worthless?" And it talks about a lot of things that happen, the prices that happen there. For example, Brough Superiors and all the others are still bringing their huge numbers that they've always brought. But those bikes have always brought those numbers. They've always been in that ultra rare collector zone. A bike that did get into the ultra rare collector zone, because it's a very expensive motorcycle and it's still more expensive than I can afford most examples, but it's had a correction. Here's a quote directly from the article. 5 years ago, a very good Vincent Black Shadow could reliably bring 180,000. And now, though there are exceptions, they struggle to reach 80,000. And Rapides hover closer to 45,000, but you probably know all that. What Mecum 2025 auction demonstrated, there was a downward trend for mass production British motorcycles. BSAs, Triumphs, Nortons, Ariels, etc. These are following the same trend as Vincent's, with a 50% plus drop in value over the past 10 years. That's a serious downturn. There's a lot of reasons for it, but let's talk about a few other examples. Okay, from the UK, on Oscar's Garage did a video recently from the Charterhouse bike auction. I'll have a link to his channel below so you can go to it. But he talks about the price upheaval in classic Japanese bikes. This is in England, but the market is generational and worldwide in all honesty. But it says, from becoming super hot buys, they are now becoming distinctly lukewarm. Another YouTuber, Derek's World of Motorcycling, as prices crash at the Bottoms auction, Spring Stafford Classic Motorcycle Show in April of 2025. But what's interesting is some of the comments. I'm going to get in a little hot water for this, but I actually agree with most of these commenters. There has been a trend. Part of what has driven the prices of these motorcycles into the stratosphere is speculation and buying them as so-called investments. Folks, you don't buy motorcycles or classic cars or anything like that as an investment. You buy it because you love it. If you want an investment, go talk to your stockbroker. But let's read some of the comments. These are comments from Derek's Motorcycle World. On the upside, if the prices drop, people might be able to afford them and ride them. Another one, Timbo 9200. I have no sympathy for investment bike owners. All they have done is overinflated bike prices. Thank goodness prices are coming down, as I was able to buy a lovely 1930 Sunbeam Model 8. I bought it to ride. As prices will continue to slide as the market floods with collections from deceased estates and the number of potential buyers decreases on year. Another commenter, just user with a bunch of alphanumeric symbols afterwards. If the market doesn't pick up, more people will be able to buy and enjoy the bikes for their merits, not as investments. Long may the market slumber. Then, of course, another commenter, Rick Constant 6106. I've had my 78 T140V for 32 years and I don't care what its value is, because I'm not selling it and I don't want to buy another one. After I retired 4 years ago, I wanted a cheap second bike for year-round use and bought a 1980 GS550 for L1000, which I ride for everyday transport. And of course, user Stormy Tempest 6521 simply commented, "It's about bloody time." It is kind of a problem. It's kind of I'm of two minds of that. Yeah, I have actually enjoyed being able to point at the auction prices and tell my wife and the rest of my family, see, this justifies it. Back when I was a mechanic years ago, let me give you an example. It's not the first time prices have dropped. If you'll look behind me at this old Dream, 15 or 20 years ago, I could not have afforded to buy this bike, not just because my income was lower. In the days before the internet, when there were two choices for finding and buying old motorcycles, Walneck Cycle Trader and the old Bike Journal. Back then, nobody realized how many tens of thousands of Dreams were sold and made, but they knew they were beautiful and they wanted to have them. And it is a beautiful bike. It's still a lovely bike. So a lot of people don't like them, but I love the style. I love the toaster tank. I love the extreme reliability of it, especially since I modernized the ignition system and the electrical charging system. They make wonderful riding motorcycles, and the prices in the 80s and 90s, in the era before the internet trading and the big auction houses got on TV, were getting to be pretty stratospheric. They were getting $4,000 or $5,000 for a good, beautifully restored or original Dream. Well then, here's what happened. The prices of them went up. Folks, there's a 305 Dream behind every other haystack in America, if you look hard enough. Matter of fact, the gentleman that I bought this one from, he brought home 3 more last week that were barn finds in rough condition, because he buys and sells old motorcycles, and even he says the market on the Dreams is way down. I wouldn't have been able to bought the one that I got from him for the price that I got, which was $1,800. 15 years ago, that same bike would have been $4,000, and it's not restored. In fact, it's distinctly unoriginal, but unrestored. It was restored incorrectly long time ago. So I just got it for a rider. I'm glad it's not that valuable. It enables me to enjoy it and to ride it and not have to worry. But at the same time, it does create a conundrum for people. who had actually bought into these things for an investment. But here's the whole thing about it. This is the time for those of us who truly love motorcycles, who truly want to own them, care for them, collect them, and ride them. It's time for us to fashion up our whip out of cords and chase the money lenders or the money handlers out of the temple of speed. The investment bikers have ruined it for all of us. They've made it impossible. Because what's happened, I'll give you a perfect example of another time. A couple years ago, there was a Z2 Kawasaki 750. Set a record-breaking price. The next year, 3 or 4 more of those same Z2 750 showed up. And all of a sudden, the prices were way down. Can I tell you why? Because nobody wanted the damn things when they were new. So there really ain't that many people. It was a novelty when there was one. But once the world realized that there was still a supply of them to be had out there, the novelty was gone. And that's so true for a lot of things. I'm not talking about your honest restoration shops and your shops where it's expensive to restore a motorcycle. Good color matching paint or good custom paint is now reached $180 or more a paint. And that doesn't include thinner, primer, supplies, your respirator, your safety gear, all that. Parts for these old bikes are rare, and you pay what you can pay for them where you can. You use good reproductions if you can find them, but where it's really critical and you have to use new old stock, you better be prepared to pay through the nose. But that being said, that's for the people that really love them and want them. I know one of the bikes that I can't wrap my head around, and if you get mad at me for saying this, I understand. It's the early CT70s, bringing $4,000 or $5,000. I've even seen some people take a silver tag KO model with an actual 4-speed transmission and stick a damn Chinese YX 140 on it and ask a restored price for it and get it. I'm sorry, it was a ruined bike. Once you put that Chinese engine on it, it's a $1,000 motorcycle. Sorry, but not sorry. But there's other things. That's just the thing that gets me. This could be our chance, those of us who love these motorcycles. I had thought about getting out of the bike business. I'm definitely not planning to buy anymore. Because what has happened, say for example, like the example for this Z2 750 Kawasaki that went for such great money. What has happened now is that everybody that's got his grandpappy's old KZ 650 leaning up against a tree in the backyard with a seized engine and a rotted out gas tank, now they think it's worth $2,000. Well, it ain't, Bubba, it's scrap metal. Granted, I usually buy scrap metal bikes and rebuild them. That's how I get a lot of my bikes. But I'm going to pay scrap metal prices for them when I do that. So that's kind of my soapbox sermon today. There is a correction of prices going on, and a lot of people will lament this. The market is correcting. But I predict that if the prices go back down to a reasonable level, we'll see more people getting back into the hobby. For example, I put a plug in for Motorcycle Classics magazine just a few minutes ago. Their subscription rate is way off. Their subscription numbers have dropped dramatically. And it's a shame, especially for those of us who still like print magazines. The vintage clubs, the vintage motorcycle clubs, the AMCA, and the Vintage Japanese Motorcycle Club of North America, both have suffered a loss of membership. Both have great publications and are great resources. If you're into Japanese motorcycles, old Japanese motorcycles, anything 20 years or older, you should be in the Vintage Japanese Motorcycle Club of North America. It's well worth your money every year. All right. Same thing if you're in the American bikes, British bikes, general, especially hardcore antiques, 35 years or older, which is what the AMCA caters to. Then you should join the AMCA, help them stay going as well. But don't get into this with an eye of, well, I'm going to buy the dip. I don't think it's a dip. I think it's a serious correction back to the true prices. And I think it will continue for a while. And I'm really hoping that I'm right, and it has the side effect of enabling more people to get it back into the hobby and back into the life of enjoying these old motorcycles as much as I do. Now, one thing I will mention, I talked about, if you really cannot afford to pay a restoration shop their money's worth, because like I said, it's expensive. The last batch of chrome plating I got back for a Honda Scrambler was $1,500 just for a handful of chrome parts, 2 exhaust pipes, and 2 wheels. If you can't afford to pay those kind of prices to somebody that can do the work, if you can't afford to pay a man $150 an hour to rebuild your carburetors, then you really, and you want to get into the old bike hobby, you really need to learn to work on them yourself. The shops that work on old bikes are few and far between. You buy that 25-year-old Honda CBR from your friend's garage, guess what? Your local dealership ain't gonna touch it. And there may not be a vintage motorcycle shop within 200 miles of you that will. So if you're looking at getting into this, you really need to be prepared to get into it. That's why I've done so many seemingly stupid, basic, simple tutorials on this channel. For example, a while back, I did a video on basically on overhauling and cleaning a single motorcycle carburetor. Then my last video was on how to test a vacuum operated petcock. If you really want to get into these bikes, it's not a turnkey thing. You're going to have to get your hands dirty at some point. Even if you pay somebody else to do the restoration, you need to learn to adjust the chain, change the oil, drain the fuel, adjust the mixture screw on the carburetor, all of these things for yourself. It really will give you a whole lot of pride. It'll make you feel like the bike is yours, not just money sitting in the garage. My old dream, I've been through it. I've rewired it. I know exactly what it can do. I've set the valves, put the new carburetor on it myself. Everything is good. That bike is connected to me in a way that if I had gone to an auction and bought it for $10,000, it never would be. So really, just learn to do at least the basic things yourself. You'll be happier and better off for it. And finally, I'd like to mention one more thing. I even hate bringing this up. Okay, and the third thing I'd like to talk about here is politics. Don't bring it to your motorcycle events. You see something, hear somebody say something you don't like. You see something you don't like just causes the politics of it. Brother, just leave it be. This is about the bikes. There's other times and other places for that. Okay? If you see a picture on a website that's about motorcycles and you see something in the background that you don't like, if you pick up a magazine and see something you don't like, if you're riding through a bike show and somebody says something that you don't like, and just because it's political. Now, if they say something truly offensive or hateful, you should at least correct them. But even then, but if it's just a political opinion, let it be. It doesn't matter if it's the left wing or right wing. I don't care. In the motorcycle world, is not the place for it. So that's it for now. Keep riding, keep wrenching, and stay crazy.